Hello there. It's time for another Brother Buckeye broadcast. I'm Doug Daniels, a.k.a. Douglas Holzmeyer. That's my legal name. When the cops pull me over for driving too fast or too slow, I give them that name. Today we're going to talk about the Ryan Day news conference, the press conference he did nearly a week ago. Didn't get to do a podcast for that one because about the time I was preparing to do it, boom, the Oregon-Washington stuff happened. So we're going to talk about what Ryan was talking about, and we're also going to, catch up on what some of the beat writers are saying about the defensive backfield in today's program. Let me bring this up. So what Ryan Day said, Ryan doesn't say a lot of stuff. He says more than Tressel did. Not as animated as Urban was. Urban was very calculated in his in his Jedi mind games way of speaking. I think Ryan is the most genuine of all of those coaches. I think Urban lacked a little bit of authenticity, probably for good measure. And Tressel was authentic, but he was very measured. A lot of coach speak. Day is what you see is what you get with Ryan Day, and I kind of like that. So, takeaways from his recent press conference, which is about 6 days ago. He said this fall, and I hate when they call it fall because it's August. We're not even, just about halfway through summer now. He said it's all about the competition being fierce and tough. I like the way that sounds. Let's see it on the field. He says the team is at full strength and 4 deep at every position. Of course, you usually play, you want a pair and a spare, and that 4th player is usually a true freshman. But he said, that's what he said, 4 deep at every one of the 22 starting positions. Plus, you have the special teams with kickers and long snappers and whatnot. He says that the quarterback that just won the high school male athlete of the year, Klein Holtz, is the real deal. He loves his attitude, says he's smart and tough. I think he's going to be the next Joe Burrow, but I think we're going to see him be a starter. Probably not next year, but the year after that, I think it's a real possibility. And that's not putting down any of the other quarterbacks. I just think he's got that moxie that we need, that we didn't always see with C.J. Stroud. We did see it in the Georgia game. Wish we would have seen it more often. All righty. The jack position is still a part of the defensive strategy, but it's going to be used when it makes the most sense. They're not just going to use it because they have it. He says there are 3 or 4 Ohio State players that are qualified to play that position. Some of those we know as linebackers. Some of them we know as defensive ends. I'll let you use your imagination, but Sawyer and JTT, CJ Hicks are probably 3 of those players. Caden Curry might be another one, and possibly one of the other larger linebackers, maybe Gabe Powers or Reed Carrico. That's more of a guess on my part. Let's see. What else did he say? Oh, in regards to the defensive line, he says there's lots of quantity and quality, which means that rotating players is certainly what Larry Johnson likes to do, and they will do it when it calls for it, but he's not going to. And again, this is me adding to what he said, reading between the lines. Not going to be throwing games away or making games closer than they have to be by taking out the better players. Make those changes after you're up about 3.5 touchdowns. So he says there are a certain number of players that are going to get the majority of the reps, but it's very, very deep on the defensive line. That interior line with Hall and Williams. Williams did nick himself up. Don't think it's anything serious, but there's just a lot of depth on the interior and on the exterior. And it shouldn't be a problem. But then again, we didn't think the running back room was going to be a problem last year either. Day also says the expectations and standards are as high as they have ever been. He says that doesn't mean that the starting quarterback gets a seat in the final three at the Heisman ceremony, like we've seen with Stroud and Fields and Haskins. It's got to be earned. You just don't get all the accolades by being the starting quarterback at Ohio State. You got to produce, and he feels that his players will indeed earn postseason honors, but they will be earned as opposed to being anointed. Again, I'm adding my verbiage there. When asked about the transfer portal, basically said God giveth and God taketh away. My words again. The program lost some players they didn't want to lose. They didn't want to lose the kid, I think it was Caleb Brown. And did they lose the receiver Graves too? They lost a couple of players they didn't plan on losing. If there was ever a position group where they could afford to lose two quality players like that without it hurting, it would be wide receiver. But having said that, they actually kept a lot of players that could have left early. Eichenberg could have left. Still, Chambers could have left. The right guard could have left. Williams at running back could have left, and they didn't. So I think that's why the expectations are so high. Joe Klatt thinks Georgia, Michigan, then Ohio State are your top three teams. I can't disagree with that until Ohio State beats Michigan. I think it's okay to have Ohio State number three. I think Ohio State's a more talented team. We just need to see it on the field. The last game of November, we haven't seen it the last 2 years. They did fill holes using the transfer portal. They've got a starting safety with Carter. They've got either a starter or a first off the bench corner with Espinosa from Ole Miss. So, and there hasn't been a lot of talk about Jimmy Simmons, Joshua Simmons. He's running third team at right tackle so far. He may yet earn his opportunity to be in the 2 deep, maybe even a starter eventually, but they like what they're seeing out of some of the other players. Cutler at one point was almost assured of a second string position at center or the guards. I'm not so sure that's going to be happening. Heinzman looks to be the starting center with Jacobs at number 2. I think it's still nice to have a quality third guy for center and also at the guard positions with Cutler from Louisiana Monroe, which is where I used to live from 2020 to 2022. Let's see. As far as Hartline being the offensive coordinator, Day emphasized that calling the plays during the games is the easy part. It's the preparation, the organization, the game planning that is the most important and that he'll be doing the most of. As far as the games themselves, he's going to be right there, and I'm sure he's going to give Brian an opportunity to take the reins. But again, I think I may have said this. I was a program director of radio stations for 40 years. I only once had a music director, and that was because I was forced to do that. I programmed the music and was the promotion director at every radio station that I programmed. I was also the morning guy or the afternoon drive guy. I wanted to be in control because I'm that way, and so are head coaches. That's why they make the big dollars. Although I never did. Let's see, what else? He's going to be especially involved with the QB room. Yes, there is a QB coach. I believe that's Coach Dennis. But he will prep and teach and coach the QBs along with Coach Dennis and Hartline. In other words, this is actually a quote. It's not a clean break between him and the QB room or him as offense coordinator. And did you think it was going to be? Nah. Day says that Burke and Hancock had great off seasons. They are the starting corners almost certainly. And that was echoed by some of the beat writers as well. There's a lot of praise for Malik Hartford, the freshman safety. He's not going to be probably in the top 3 or 4 or 5, but 6 or 7 is definitely a possibility. He's a player. Sonny Styles is actually practicing at the nickel. He's a first-team safety, but he's playing nickel. Ranson and the aforementioned Carter from Syracuse are the other 2 starting safeties at this point. Day says McCord and Brown are splitting first. I'm kind of jumping all over the place. Day says McCord and Brown are splitting first-team reps at this point. He loves having the other 2 guys, Jebbia and Klingholtz. Again, there should be no quarterback issues. There's just too much talent and depth there. They finally admitted what we all knew during the 2021 Oregon game. He should have been running the ball to win and not placing it all on Stroud's young and injured shoulder. I was screaming at the television during that game. The Oregon defense could not stop Mayan Williams. And, Stroud threw the ball out of bounds, and then he threw the interception. Did that in the 2021 Nebraska game. The game is over. Just run the clock out. Day had Stroud go back to pass. Stroud fumbled. Thank goodness a Buckeye fell on it, or that would have been a Nebraska potential victory there. And then at the end of the Georgia game, I'd have to go back and look at the play calling there. But all Ohio State needed to do was get 5 yards. And instead they lost 2 throwing the ball. So you've got that offensive line. You got those backs. Use them. Heck, we almost lost the Northwestern Big Ten championship game because he wasn't running Trey Sermon, who the Wildcats couldn't stop. When he finally did, Trey ran for an all-time record of 346 yards. Should have run for 446 yards that day. No pun intended. What else? Some of the beat writers are saying that, again, Carter, Ranson, and Styles are your starters at safety. Martinez, Proctor, and Key Stokes. The next 3, and the aforementioned Malik Hartford is probably running 7, but is turning heads for sure. Court Williams has been moved from safety to linebacker. It's where he should have always been. He's a tweener, but he hits like a train, and linebacker makes a lot more sense. And as I mentioned, Burke, Hancock, and Espinosa are probably the first 3 corners, with Jair Brown next. As far as the freshman corners, it's just too early to tell about that. So I think that is today's report. I love this time of year. I just don't love hearing about injuries. So far, the only nick up that we've heard is Tyleik Williams, who doesn't need to be hurt because I think he's going to be a very important part of the success of the defensive line this season. The first game is less than 4 weeks away, about 3.5 weeks. It's Indiana, going to be opening up in Bloomington. Unless we are on Earth 2, and some people are, that should be a win. Youngstown State and Western Kentucky should be wins. And then we venture to South Bend for Notre Dame. What a game that's going to be. I am your Brother Buckeye Doug. This has been the Brother Buckeye broadcast. I don't know if I'm going to be checking in tomorrow. I have to work at Mattress Firm. I'm going to be at the Diamond Plaza location. If you're in need of a mattress for yourself, your kid, a guest room, we've got them. Come see me from 10 to 8 tomorrow, Wednesday, Mattress Firm, Diamond Plaza. Hey, make it a great evening. Take care, and I do hope that you let your Democratic representative republic position on issue 1 be heard? Majority rule? Just saying. But that's up to you. Take care. Go Bucks. And I'm going to hit stop and have myself some coffee.